All right, let's just get right into it. We see them everywhere, right? On our screens, on stage, all over social media, and they seem to be living these, perfect lives. But behind the velvet rope and those perfectly curated Instagram feeds, there's a whole other world. A world of whispers, rumors, and anonymous secrets. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the very shadowy, very fascinating world of celebrity blind items.
Just imagine for a second. What if all the biggest scandals, the secret heartbreaks, and the totally manufactured relationships were all out there for us to read? But there's a catch. No names are mentioned. You just get the clues, and you, the reader, have to solve the puzzle. That, right there, is the entire game we're exploring. So, for anyone who's not familiar, a blind item is exactly what it sounds like, an anonymous piece of gossip. It might talk about an A-list singer with a penchant for drama, or a meme-worthy actor from a hit sci-fi movie, giving just enough detail for the superfans to start connecting the dots. It's basically a detective game that totally blurs the line between a wild rumor and a potential reality. Okay, so let's get into our first big theme here, the public performance. This is where blind items really thrive, by making us question if anything we're seeing is actually authentic. They make you look twice at the way a couple holds hands, the smiles on the red carpet, even the way someone talks. And they ask, is this real or is it all just for the cameras?
This quote right here is a perfect example of that skepticism. It's a comment that was floating around about the very public relationship between Timothée Chalamet and Kylie Jenner. And you can see the person writing this isn't just seeing a couple, they're seeing actors in a scene. It makes you wonder, right? Are we watching a real romance or just a really well-rehearsed production? And this is where it gets really juicy, because you have this huge conflict. On one side, you've got the anonymous whispers saying it's all for show, that he was even told not to mention her in a big Vogue interview. But then on the other side, you get these official-sounding reports from insiders painting this picture of them spending the holidays together. So who are you supposed to believe? The anonymous source or the so-called friendly insider? And hey, this kind of scrutiny isn't just about who's dating who. Think about Lindsay Lohan. After she'd been living overseas for a while, she came back with this new kind of bizarre accent that nobody could place. To the public and the gossip columns, this wasn't just a fun fact. It was another performance to pick apart. Another part of her public persona that felt, well, a little fake. It all feeds into that same big question. What's real and what's just part of the act? This brings us to the whole idea of the PR relationship. Blind items have basically created a checklist of telltale signs. For example, people were whispering about the singer Madison Beer and quarterback Justin Herbert. The timing of their relationship seemed just a little too convenient with her new album drop. They had these viral moments that felt totally staged, and then a story comes out that they're buying a $20 million mansion together. It's like these items are training you to spot the marketing strategy behind the romance. But now we've got to shift gears, because it's not all about PR stunts. Sometimes the whispers get much, much darker. They hint at private struggles, and they turn what seems like harmless gossip into something that feels way more urgent, and frankly, pretty concerning. And this is where things get really serious. A really long and detailed blind item came out about Lady Gaga and her fiancé, Michael Polanski. And this wasn't just suggesting they were on the rocks. It painted a really disturbing picture. Sources were claiming he was manipulative, that he'd cut Gaga off from her friends, and that he controlled every single part of her life, down to her schedule and social plans. It even alleged that behind the scenes, he can't stand her fans. And then you see this. While all these anonymous sources are sounding the alarm, Lady Gaga herself is out in public, just glowing, calling him her best friend, saying the love and support she feels is just different. This is the crazy paradox of blind items. You have these deeply troubling accusations on one side and this picture of absolute happiness on the other. It leaves you completely stuck, not knowing what to think. This really forces us all to ask a pretty tough question. Are we just reading this stuff for fun, for entertainment? Or are we potentially looking at a real warning sign, a red flag that we're all just scrolling past? It's one thing to guess about a fake relationship, but it's something else entirely when the whispers suggest a person might actually be in danger. And there is no more intense example of this than the Britney Spears saga.
I mean, the timeline is just chaotic. It starts with a blind item that hints at multiple personalities. Then, a photo goes viral where she looks unrecognizable, and suddenly there are reports her family is panicking. Britney fires back online saying she was set up. Of course, this just fuels even wilder fan theories that she's a clone, that her tattoos have mysteriously vanished, that she's sending secret cries for help in her posts.
So in the end, you're left with this impossibly tangled mess. You've got anonymous sources screaming that something is wrong. You have a family that's reportedly struggling just to get in touch with her. And then you have Britney herself pushing back against all of it, telling everyone she's a survivor. It's just this vortex of concern, speculation, and denial. And honestly, it's impossible for anyone on the outside to know what the truth really is. So why? Why are we so obsessed with this stuff? What is the psychological pull of these anonymous stories? For our last section, let's break down the real allure of the blind item and figure out why, for better or for worse, we just can't seem to look away. You know, there's a whole life cycle to these things, and it usually follows a pretty predictable path. It all starts with that one cryptic post on some gossip site. Immediately, online detectives on forums and social media get to work, piecing together all the little clues. Once enough people are buzzing about it, the mainstream media might pick it up, reporting on the speculation. And just like that, a totally anonymous, completely unverified rumor becomes a public story, and that line between fact and fiction gets incredibly blurry. So what are these items even about? This chart gives us a really fascinating look. You can see a huge chunk is dedicated to stuff like PR stunts and good old-fashioned relationship drama, you know, the fun stuff. But a pretty significant part also gets into the nitty-gritty of contract talks, like all the prenup chatter around Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. And as we've seen, a solid 20% is dedicated to those genuine, deeply worrying concerns about a star's well-being. It's a real mix of the silly and the deadly serious. I think at the end of the day, this is the real appeal. Celebrities show us this image of perfection, of these flawless lives. Blind items promise us the exact opposite. They offer this secret, unfiltered peek at the messy reality that we all suspect is hiding just behind the curtain. It's the promise of the real story, and that's an intoxicating idea, even if we know we can never be 100% sure if that story is true. So we're left with this final question. As we read this stuff, as we click and share and speculate online, where do we personally draw the line? When does it stop being harmless fun and start becoming part of a system that might be doing real harm? There's really no easy answer, but it's definitely something to think about the next time a juicy, anonymous story pops up on your screen.